He was born in a tiny log cabin on the rough frontier of Kentucky, in 1809. His family was poor, so poor that young Abraham Lincoln would walk miles just to borrow a single book. His mother died when he was just 9 years old, and sorrow became an early companion. But Lincoln was stubborn in the best way. He had an unshakable belief in learning, in fairness, and in the quiet power of words. Night after night, by candlelight, he taught himself to read, to write, to think. As a young man, Lincoln failed again and again. At 21, he lost his job. At 22, he ran for the state legislature, and lost. At 24, he started a business, and went bankrupt. At 25, he ran again for the legislature, and this time, he won. At 26, the woman he loved tragically died. At 27, he suffered a nervous breakdown. And still, he kept going. His political career was filled with heartbreak. At 29, he lost a bid to become Speaker. At 34, he lost a run for Congress. At 39, he lost again. At 46, he lost a race for the U.S. Senate. At 47, he failed to become Vice President. At 49, another defeat for the Senate. Imagine the strength it took to stand back up each time, to keep believing that somehow, someday, he could make a difference. And then, at the age of 51, Abraham Lincoln was elected as the 16th President of the United States. But the challenges had only begun. The country was tearing itself apart in a bloody civil war. Friends turned into enemies, families divided, and more than 600,000 lives would be lost. Lincoln faced criticism, hatred, crushing responsibility, and the darkest nights of doubt. Yet, he never let go of the vision that had kept him going since boyhood, a nation where freedom was real, and all people were truly equal. In 1863, standing on a battlefield soaked with blood, he delivered the Gettysburg Address. Just 272 words, but words that still echo through history. That government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Lincoln's greatest act was the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing millions of enslaved people. It was a moment of courage that changed America forever. Tragically, Lincoln didn't live to see the peace he fought for. In April 1865, just days after the war ended, he was assassinated. But what he left behind was bigger than any one life. Abraham Lincoln's story is not about winning every time. It's about rising every time you fall. About turning pain into purpose. And believing, even in your darkest hour, that your struggle can mean something for others. He showed us that real success isn't measured by the heights you reach, but by the number of times you get back up after being knocked down. That's why, more than 150 years later, the world still remembers Abraham Lincoln, not just as a president, but as a symbol of hope, humility, and unstoppable human spirit.